Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for the invitation. My talk today is about KFSH experience in chronic GVHD and what's new. I will touch on base on pathophysiology of chronic GVHD and the evolution of the GVHD treatment in the last couple of years, and touch base with the steroid refractory GVHD definition and treatment, and I will end it up with local experience presenting 2 cases in our center. As you all know, the GVHD is post-allogenic transplant complication. It's classified into acute and chronic based on the timing. Acute GVHD usually occur in the first 100-day post-allo transplant, affecting mainly gut, skin, and liver. Chronic GVHD is autoimmune disease characterized by chronic inflammation and depleting and fibrotic changes. Overlap GVHD is usually had this both acute and chronic features, and it can affect other organ of the acute GVHD like lung, muscle joint, and genitourinary symptoms. The incidence of chronic GVHD is usually 30 to 70, up to 70% in the patient post-allogenic transplant with the classic GVHD prophylaxis with CNI and antimetabolate. Unfortunately, it's carry high risk of mortality and morbidity post-transplant and affecting the quality of life of the patients. Unlike the acute GVHD, the chronic GVHD is affecting the immune tolerance of adaptive and innate immunity of both donor T cells and B cells, alloreactive and autoreactive way. Alloreactive and autoreactive led to antigen-presenting cell activation, which lead to inflammation and fibrosis and end organ damage. As we probably know, that pathophysiology of chronic GVHD is usually divided in 3 phases. The phase 1 is from the donor hematopoietic stem cells and alloreactive T cells. The phase 2 is from the donor hematopoietic stem cells and thymic injury and dysfunction of both T and B cells and NK cell. The phase 3 is usually the chronic inflammation and fibrosis, which led to the irreversible damage in chronic GVHD. The treatment of chronic GVHD, usually we use the systematic corticosteroid, which carry a varied response rate between 50 to 55%. Additionally, another immunosuppression didn't show any much benefit. This table summarized the randomized phase trial that done in the field, adding other immunosuppression to the corticosteroid, which failed to show any benefit apart from adding CNI. Nowadays, we moving from targeting general inflammation with corticosteroid to more targeted therapy affecting the pathophysiology of the disease, as we are better understanding the pathomechanism of the disease, like JAK2 inhibitor, ROCK2 inhibitors, proton tyrosine kinase inhibitor, and aiming of that, reducing the long-term morbidity and toxicity of the steroid. One of the challenging things of us is when the patient is not responding to the steroid or developing steroid refractoriness. As you probably know, chronic GVHD is a progression, while the steroid refractory is a chronic GVHD progression while in the prednisolone more than 1 milligram for 1 or 2 weeks, or stable GVHD while in prednisolone more than 0.5 milligram per kg for 1 to 2 months. Steroid dependence and ability to taper that prednisolone below 0.25 milligram per kg in at least 2 unsuccessful attempts, at least 8 weeks apart. And the most hard part to deal with is the long-term complication and unacceptable toxicity, including recurrent infection, AVN, DM, steroid-induced myopathy, and osteoporosis. This slides actually summarize the pathogenesis, how understanding the pathogenesis of the disease help us to find a new, better drugs to treating chronic GVHD, starting with ibrutinib, which is a protein tyrosine kinase inhibitor, affecting both B and T cell proliferation, production, and autoantibodies. Blimosudil is ROCK2 inhibitor, which affect the Th17 and follicular helper T cells, decreasing them and increasing the Treg, and subsequently decreasing the fibrosis. Ruxolitinib is a JAK2 inhibitor, which reduce cytokine production and proliferation. And the last one is oxetolumab, which was recently approved last year, which is CSF1 receptor inhibitor monoclonal antibody, which reduce the cytokine production in the monocytes and macrophages. We'll start with ibrutinib. Ibrutinib is the first drug to get approved based on phase 2 trial with overall response rate 67%, with more than 70% maintaining the response more than 20 weeks, with a reasonable safety profile, and most important part that most of the patients in the trial were able to taper the steroid to lower dose and avoid the long-term toxicity of the steroid. Ruxolitinib is JAK2 inhibitors. In RICH-3 trial, it was comparing the ROX with the best available treatment with the primary endpoint overall response rate at 24 weeks. The results at 24 weeks was in favorable of ruxolitinib with 50% overall response comparing with 25%. And the secondary endpoint, the best overall response was 76 compared with 60% in the best available treatment arm. More importantly, the median failure-free survival at 24 weeks was longer with the ruxolitinib, 18.6 months versus 5.7. With ruxolitinib was safe drug, and checking the safety profile, it was comparable between the two arms with no major side effects. Based on that trial, the ruxolitinib get approval in 21. Moving to the next study, ROCKSTAR trial. It's a phase 2 trial comparing 2 doses of blimosudil for patients who received minimum 2 lines of therapy, and primary endpoint was overall response, and the secondary point was safety and free FFS and overall survival. The results was impressive in both doses of the blimosudil, 74% in 200 milligram daily and 77% in the 200 BID, with safety profile with median time to response within 5 weeks. And this led also to the approval of blimosudil in July 2021. This graph basically shows how the response was maintained through all organs, including the lung, with the safety profile of the medication in heavily treated patient with multiple lines of treatment. Moving to the last drug approval last year, axatilimab, based in AGAVA 201 trial in patients with receiving a minimum 2 barrier line, including ibrutinib, ruxolitinib, and blimosudil. This was phase 2 trial testing 3 doses of axatilimab, which is IV medication given every 2 weeks by 0.3 milligram Q2 weeks, or 1 milligram Q2 weeks, or 3 milligram Q4 weeks. The primary endpoint was overall survival for the first 6 cycles, and the secondary was the symptom reduction and sustained response rate with organ-specific response rate and the safety profile of the drug. The result was impressive. The 0.3 milligram dose showed 74% response rate with median time to reach 1.7, and 60% of the responders maintained their response up to 1 year. You can see on the left is the how the dose 0.3 was more effective than the the other 2 doses, and also the overall response was maintained through was sustained through the organs, including difficult organ like lungs and eyes. Last year in the ASH, there was update about response analysis of AGAVA 201, which showed basically that most of the response will happen by day 56 if they get response with the lower dose, 0.3 milligram Q 2 weeks. And moving now to the last part of my presentation, which is clinical cases in our hospital. I will present 2 cases. The first one is about young patient, is 26-year-old, diagnosed with T-cell-rich B-cell lymphoma, stage 4. He was treated initially with R-CHOP 6 cycle. He was refractory, salvaged, and consolidated with autologous stem cell transplant. Unfortunately, he relapsed shortly after that, so we elect to transplanted him in March 2022. His early course post-transplant complicated with acute GVHD grade 3, involving skin, liver, and gut, treated with IV methyl and cyclosporine. Subsequently, the patient had a major complication, required multiple admission with recurrent infection, AFib, CMV viremia, acute kidney injury, including lung aspergillosis. As you know, he had acute GVHD, so subsequently he developed chronic GVHD. In November 2022, he developed moderate chronic GVHD by NIH criteria, treated with steroid and cyclosporine. And subsequently, he also still had complication from the steroid, recurrent infection, developed metabolic syndrome, DM, and was not tolerating the steroid very well. We weaned him from the steroid in September 23. After exactly 1 week from stopping the prednisolone, while he's still in cyclosporine, he flared. So we elect to, giving the toxicity that he developed with the steroid, we elect to start him in second-line ruxolitinib. He responded to ruxolitinib very well without even adding the steroid. We were happy about the result at that time. While we tapered him in the ruxolitinib, unfortunately he flared in June 2024 when he reached the low dose of ruxolitinib. He had a flare in the skin, mouth, also worsening, developing lung GVHD, bronchiolitis obliterans. So at that time we resumed, actually we increased the dose of ruxolitinib and started him on FAM. Despite that, he was not much improving. He started to develop localized skin lesion, morphea-like lesion, and also worsening of his chest symptoms in form of recurrent infection. So we give him rituximab 4 doses with partial response. Between December and March, we had much kind of control of his disease in form of normalizing his liver, improving his oral symptoms and his oral intake. But he kept developing new localized fibrotic skin lesions in upper and lower limb with the persistent chest symptoms and worsening in his BFT and HRCT. In this table, you can see that his FEV1 was improved when he was in ruxolitinib to 85%, but with the tapering of ROX, his FEV1 was decreased again, and meanwhile, he had active GVHD disease in other organs. So in March, like by definition, he had severe GVHD by an IH criteria, and we elect to started him in a plomocidil 200 daily. And since then, he's in the first month, he didn't have much change in his symptoms, but he didn't develop the new symptoms. And actually, I saw him last week, and he started to have improvement in the localized fibrotic lesion in his lower limb, with softening of the changes of the skin, and changing in the discoloration as well. And he didn't have any infection or chest symptoms since we started him in plomocidil. So we are optimistic that he will respond.
1 minute.
I will move to the second or the last case of my talk is Mr. A is a 28-year-old male with high-risk AML, monocytic type, diagnosed back in 2019. He was transplanted in July with conditioning BuSci and GVHD prophylaxis, cyclosporine, and methotrexate. Early transplant course was complicated with TMA, required switching him from CNI to MMF, and also he developed late onset VOD, was treated with defibrotide. He developed chronic GVHD in October 2019. It was severe by NIH criteria, skin, liver, mouth, and eye. Treated with a steroid and MMF. He improved initially. In January, with the tapering, he had mild flare. He responded to increase the steroid. Subsequently, we tried to every time we tried to taper him, he was flaring, so he was labeled as a steroid dependent, and we started him in a second line ibrutinib. He improved with ibrutinib, additionally to increasing the steroid, and he did well. We kept tapering both the steroid and maintained ibrutinib for minimum 6 months, then we tapered him. In April 2021, he was off ibrutinib. Because of the prolonged history of steroid use, he developed adrenal insufficiency, requiring replacement, and after a couple of months of stopping the ibrutinib, he presented again with severe flare-up of skin, muscle, I remember also mouth, and then we resumed ibrutinib with the steroid. He responded nicely, but took him longer time to get off the ibrutinib and also the steroid. Meanwhile, he had other complications other than adrenal insufficiency. He developed bilateral AVN of the hips and recurrent bone infection. Initially, while he was still in lower dose of ibrutinib, and later on, after even he stopped the ibrutinib. In December 22 and February 23, he developed septic arthritis, osteomyelitis, required hospitalization for a couple of months, and IV antibiotic with drainage. In August 2023, he had again osteomyelitis, required the drainage with positive culture, and he was treated with prolonged course of Bactrim. I would like to conclude my speak, and thank you, everyone.